Everybody. I want to thank you all for being here. Merry Christmas. This is the December 19th, 2016 meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee. Before we get started on with our resolutions, I just wanted to acknowledge some terrific work that's been done by the Metro Finance Department, and we have Kim McDaniel here, the Deputy Director of Finance, sitting in for Talia, that you should be ready to receive a new set of quarterly reports coming out that's going to be made available every quarterly. One is on expenses and revenues by department and by category. Another is on Metro's outstanding liabilities. A third is the outstanding funded public projects and their completion percentage. And fourth is a vendor's report on a quarterly basis. I encourage everybody on the committee to look closely at these and work with Kim, who's done an outstanding job of pulling a lot of information together in order to make these reports even better. They'll be posted online. They will be searchable. I think there'll be a great benefit to streamlining the information process going forward for all of us on the committee. But again, I want to just acknowledge the incredible job that Metro Finance has done at making this information accessible, and they will be posted and publicly available on a quarterly basis. Again, expenses and revenues, liabilities, outstanding funded public projects and their completion, and then also a vendors list every quarter. The first quarterly report goes through September as they're slowly beginning to catch up, and they'll be posted in a more timely basis going forward. With that being said, we're on to Resolution RS 2016-490, accepts a grant from the Nashville Predators to the Metro Sports Authority. This has been asked to be deferred by Metro Legal, so with no, I guess that's just, it's on your report, a one-meeting deferral, and actually if we could have a motion for that. And seconded, any further discussion? Seeing none, it's adopted for a one-meeting deferral.
All four. All in favor.
Oh, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. That passes. Resolution RS 2016-491 accepts a grant from the Tennessee Titans Foundation to the Metro Sports Authority to assist with new purchases benefiting the special event program. Is there a motion? Motion and second. Is there discussion? Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor say aye. Aye. The motion passes. On to Resolution RS 2016-492, accepts a totally outstanding Teen Advocates grant from the Nashville Public Library Foundation to the Nashville Public Library to provide a leadership team to design, develop, and implement programs for both the public and teens. Is there a motion? Motion and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue for discussion, all in favor say aye. All opposed? 492 passes. Resolution 2016-493 accepts a grant from the Tennessee State Library and Archives to the Nashville Public Library to provide trained library staff to assist customers in accessing technology. Is there a motion? Motion and a second. Seeing no one in the queue for discussion, all in favor say aye. The motion passes. RS 2016-494 accepts a grant from the Red Caboose Playground to Metro Parks and Recreation to benefit the Red Caboose Playground in Bellevue Park. Is there a motion? A second. Any discussion from the council lady from the district? All right. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor say aye. All opposed? 494 passes. Resolution RS 2016-495. Approves Amendment 1 to an Emergency Solutions Grant from the Tennessee Housing Development Agency to the Metro Social Services Commission to provide services to the homeless and those at risk from homelessness. Is there a motion? A motion and so moved. Council Lady Weiner.
Thank you. The Chamber's requested a roll call vote on this one.
All right. On 495. So a roll call vote, separate from show of hands. So all in favor, let's raise our hand.
It was BL 495. Never mind.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Thank you, Council Lady. I believe that RS 495 passed comfortably. So we will call that adopted. And then Resolution RS 2016-496 approves Amendment 2 to a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to the Metro Board of Health to enhance access to a comprehensive continuum of high-quality community-based care for low-income individuals and families with HIV disease. Is there a motion? So moved and seconded. Anyone in the queue? Council Lady Weiner, you are not seeking recognition? No, okay. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor say aye. All opposed, 496 passes. Resolution RS 2016-497 approves Amendment 4 to a grant to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to the Metro Board of Health to enhance access to a comprehensive continuum of high-quality community-based care for low-income individuals and families with HIV disease. So is there a motion on 497? Moved and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor say aye. Oh, actually, excuse me, Council Lady Allen.
I just wanted to make sure I was understanding what this one does. In the analysis, it was in red, and it looked like it was taking away the same $95,000 that the resolution in front had added to it. Am I understanding that right, or can Mr.
Sorry. Here we are, Mike.
Essentially, this is two resolutions that are necessary to do the same thing. It's taking the dollar amount from one fiscal year that was left over and moving it into the next fiscal year so it still can be spent.
All right. Any further questions, Council Lady? All right. Thank you. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor of 497, say aye. All opposed, 497 passes. RS 2016-499 approves a federal lands access program grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation to the Metro Planning Department to improve state and local transportation facilities that provide access through federal lands for visitors, recreationists, and resource users. Council Lady, is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Council Lady Allen.
Again, if I understand this right, this is widening Highway 100 where it goes through Warner Parks, perhaps, or near it. Is there an environmental study that's connected to that?
Is there anyone from Metro Parks? Here is from planning. Thank you.
Hi, Carrie Logan, Metro Planning Department. This grant would be for the planning and engineering study. We could then apply for a future grant for construction.
And would that engineering study include environmental impact
Yeah, all
as
the
well?
requirements, environmental impacts.
Great, okay,
yes.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Council Lady. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor say aye. Aye. 499 passes. Resolution RS 2016-500 authorizes the Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claims of Rebecca Jameson and Orrin Jameson against Metro for the amount of $75,000 to be paid out of the self-insured liability fund. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Councilman Pulley.
Yes, just a couple of brief questions for Metro Legal on this. Mr. Cooper. It looks like we have an accident where the Sheriff's Department operator driving evidently a prisoner struck someone as they were stopped at a red light. Is there anything more egregious than simply failing to see that the vehicle in front of him was stopped?
No, I think it was just a rear-end accident. James, do you have any further?
The sheriff's office employee just did not see the vehicle in front of him. It was just a mistake, a negligent act. And so it wasn't anything more egregious than that. It was just a simple mistake.
Sounds good. Simple mistake, and you're good with all those numbers. Are we at risk anything more than that if we move this forward and advance it?
Yes, this will resolve the entire accident.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Councilman Mendez.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I had a question about the analysis right up. The last sentence of it talks about the discipline against the employee consisted of a one-day suspension from vacation. What does that mean? 1 day less of vacation?
Correct.
No other discipline other than that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Maybe the sheriff's office could comment on that.
Yes, thank you. If you would.
Hi, Katie Stone with the Sheriff's Office. Yes, it was a one-day suspension. Generally speaking, one-day suspensions, we allow someone to substitute vacation time for an actual suspension from them actually not getting paid. We just deduct the vacation time if they elect.
All right, thank you. I guess, I mean, I know everybody's working hard, but it seems like causing $75,000 worth of damage maybe ought to warrant a little bit more internal discipline than that. But thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Pulley, or you have a further question? Yes.
Yeah, if we're going to speak to that issue, it looks like, from what I've seen, that's a standard practice from these lawsuits. When I asked the police department, that was seemed to be their standard policy, was to give that 1 day suspension. I've got a little bit of an opposing view on whether or not that's appropriate to the situation or not, but I don't know that we're the ones that really need to be governing that. I think that's a little bit harsh myself. The agencies I served in, you know, we barely got a written reprimand when we were involved in an at-fault accident, but yeah, that's just my opinion.
Councilman Bedney.
Yeah, my question is actually the other way around. I'm trying to wonder, I mean, I'm trying to figure out if perhaps we didn't put the driver at risk somehow, overworking him, because, I mean, to me, it's a vehicle parked in front of it. It seems like more than just a little mistake. So I wonder if there is an issue on the procedures from the sheriff's office in terms of putting too much pressure on these drivers. I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Would the sheriff's office like to respond?
I mean, we want these drivers and the people that are being transported to be safe like the sheriff wants, so I just...
Right. It's my understanding that there were no issues in this case regarding him the officer having been overworked or having worked over his shift or anything like that. It was just a simple mistake.
Any further questions, Councilman? All right, thank you. Again, Councilman Pulley, I wanted to make sure you've answered all your questions. Yes, sir. Okay. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed. 500 passes. On to BL 2016-494, establish a program to provide assistance to low-income elderly residents of the metropolitan government for the fiscal year 2016-2017. Is there a motion? Motion made and seconded. Councilman Mendez.
I just wanted to confirm, I think I read in the analysis that this is a annual continuation of an existing program with funds that we already appropriated in the budget.
Correct.
A lot of positive head nods up there.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor of 494, please say aye. All opposed, 494 passes. BL 2016-495 amends the Metro Code to allow incentive grants relative to economic and community development incentive grants. Council Lady Allen. Oh, is there a motion? Motion and seconded. Council Lady Allen.
I just wanted to hear a little bit more about what the clawback would look like as we're calling for that.
As drafted, there is no explicit change that would be required other than in the written agreements that memorialize the incentive grant. At some point, there would need to be a specific addressing of what portion, if any, to be refunded or reimbursed. I would make note that that could be zero. That could be the comment. But the council members then have the assurance that it was at least addressed by the parties.
Council Lady Weiner.
And the chamber does want a copy of the roll call vote on this one.
Yes, ma'am. Any comments? All right. Councilman Mendez.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I guess I want to start by asking what the purpose of this is.
Well, as I'm the sponsor, I think the purpose is mindfulness, that when future agreements are written, for the negotiator on Metro's side to be mindful of what happens if things don't happen as forecast. And nothing may happen, or there may be a remedy proposed, but that in every case, the B path, what happens if it doesn't go as forecast, is addressed officially. And again, there may be no consequence, there may be no clawback, as it were, or reimbursement. But it's a habit of mindfulness in the agreement.
And I guess following up on that, so does that mean you've got a current concern about whether Metro has been mindful of that in negotiating these previously?
No, I think it's just going forward. That it's a standard practice to always be able to deliberately either include it in the agreement or to know what would happen if there's some future action that is not performed. That in every case, this is an agreement requiring a future action. What happens if a future action is not performed?
I guess where I'm tripping up a little bit is to have this be required in the legal document signed between Metro and I guess IDB and the recipient company. That ends up being, so there'll end up being a single space 3 or 4 or 5 line paragraph in a 10, 15, 20 page document. And other than the mindfulness, then what? It's got to make it into the analysis, whether there's a clawback or not, council analysis for us, and then presumably you're most interested in the information being available for the public, whether there's a clawback or not. And I guess I'm belaboring it, but the place where I'm getting tripped up is we're with presumably the ultimate goal of making sure that there's transparency for the public, we're getting into forcing a particular paragraph into a document that, frankly, other than 3 of us, nobody's going to read, Mr. Jameson and maybe Metro Legal. And so I just wonder about the usefulness of requiring the particular language in the agreement. I mean, I don't think it ends up changing anything because there's either going to be a clawback or not a clawback, and we're going to have to hear about it in the council analysis, and hopefully we're being mindful about it. I'm just not sure whether it accomplishes a lot, respectfully.
Councilman Pulley.
Thank you. I've got some similar questions here relating to that. And the people from the city, Matt, would you be the appropriate person to speak to this, or the finance department, or? Sure.
I would be happy. I'd be happy to answer any questions that I'm qualified to answer.
Sure.
And even
right.
some that I'm probably not qualified to answer.
Oh, maybe it's either you or Intalia's not here, or whoever's in Intalia's place. But when we have these incentive agreements, specifically with the jobs, $500 a job, if you have X number of jobs, how is the money dispersed?
So what happens in all of these agreements is the company starts the clock ticking at some point, and it runs for some number of consecutive years. Once they notify the IDB through a written letter that the IDB has to receive by December 31st. The company then submits to Metro an audited number of jobs based upon the definition of a job in the agreement by, it's either February 15th or February 28th of a given year. It does that so that the finance director can then multiply that times 500, put it into the budget that's submitted to the council. The council then, of course, can amend or change that amount. There's no way to legally bind future councils. But if it's in the budget that's proposed, and if it's that budget is if the adopted budget still includes that provision, then the money is paid out by July 15th of the subsequent year. So it's a long way of saying the company has some number of jobs December 31st. They tell us by February 28th. We put it in the budget's proposed, it's passed or it's not, and then they get paid July 15th if it's in the budget. So it's an actual number of jobs that have actually already occurred. I think so. That's the process.
So if it calls for 500 jobs and they only meet 175 of those, you don't pay for 500, you pay for 175, right?
So there is one exception.
Annual, and this is done annually.
Correct. So in all previous agreements prior to the Warner one, which I think you're referencing, essentially the company had to reach 500 jobs before they received the grant. In this case, the company reasonably expects to exceed 500 jobs, but they are initially committing to 175, and this council, agreed to say, yeah, we'll pay for the 175. If you don't reach 500 by year 4, then the deal ends. We've paid you, whatever number of jobs you actually had times 500 for those 3 years, and then the deal's off. And so that's how there was not a clawback. There's not a clawback. And the rationale for that is essentially we believe that the jobs were each worth $500. And so we're not going to go back and claw back money. The company delivered the jobs, right? If they don't deliver the jobs, they don't get paid anything because they have to submit an audited number of jobs they actually had. So they delivered the jobs. They got paid for those jobs. And so in the structure of that agreement, we have not gone to say 5 years down the road, hey, something happened this year, so we're going to take back the money from 5 years ago. That has not been, to date, a policy of the administration.
So if future action and performed, then you don't pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, a clawback, there are accountability provisions which essentially say, in broad terms, you get what you pay for. A clawback says, if I promise to deliver X and I deliver X for 4 years, then in year 5, I'd said I would do something and I don't do it in year 5. Not only do I not receive whatever compensation I was supposed to get in year 5, but then Metro government would reach back, claw back the money we had previously dispersed, some portion of it. I mean, that would have to be negotiated, but reach a clawback says, you said what you would do in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, but we're taking that money back because you didn't do something in year 5. I mean, conceptually, that's what a clawback is. But that would all have to be negotiated.
So is what I'm just concerned if what we're doing here is somehow redundant to what you're already negotiating in the deals that you're doing. So I have similar concerns about whether it's necessary that we go forward with something like this. What's your opinion?
I feel, but I mean, maybe on the subject of this, I feel we have been mindful of this concept in all the agreements we've negotiated to date. But so.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Councilman.
I don't have any more.
Council Lady Dowell.
I just couldn't hear some of the conversation when you were talking, and I was just going to ask if you would speak in the mic just a little more. But it's after the fact. I was speaking with you, Chair Cooper.
Oh, okay.
We couldn't hear back here. Council Lady Murphy and I both were kind of struggling to hear some of the commentary with regard to this piece of legislation, and so I was just asking if you would just speak a little closer in the mic so we could hear.
Okay, thank you. Council Lady Allen.
Thank you. I appreciate being able to ask 2 sets of questions. Can I direct this at Matt again, Mr. Wiltshire, if I can get you back up to the mic? In terms of the language, the specific language that's in this, would what you've done so far have fit into the language that's here? That's my first question. Does this language change the way previous deals have been negotiated, or would they have worked consistent with this? And then secondly, does it make it more difficult for you to negotiate, or is this better than having us say, well, we want to approve things and then we'll go back and decide whether we really had this deal with this person? So I guess, part of what we're trying to do, I think, is to be clear that it's clear to you what's important to us, and then we continue to let you do the negotiating rather than us trying to be part of the negotiating, because that seems really awkward to have 40 people at the table. So first question is, could you have done all the deals you wanted to with the language that's here? And secondly, are we making the negotiating harder, or can you work with this?
First and most importantly, I appreciate every opportunity to discuss, and I and other members of the administration appreciate every opportunity to discuss with you all what is important to you all. A, because you all ultimately are approving all of these, and B, because I think that always helps improve the process. Feedback is great, and things that aren't there. So that part's true. Specifically this language, as I understand it, and I'll defer to the chair, I've not discussed this with the chair. My understanding is what is required in this legislation is essentially a section in agreement that says, is there a clawback or is there not a clawback? It is not dictating that there be one. It is simply saying in the agreement that is put forth to council, there will be a section that says, is there a clawback? Yes or no? Or if yes, then I guess describe what it is. Mr. Jamison, is that a fair? So this legislation would not change in any way any of the agreements that have been passed to date. I don't think it would change the process of sort of evaluating or negotiating these deals. What it would add is a provision in the memorializing agreement that would show you all explicitly what I hope what we try and cover with you, which is, these deals have 40 points in them, right? And I hope that we're going over each of those with you each time. This just says one of those points needs to be included in the written agreement specifically. So.
Any further questions, Council Lady? I want to thank Matt for being more articulate about this than I am. Not unusual. Council Lady Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. When I look at legislation, I want to see that we're not redundant, and it seems to me that if you're putting language in a contract specifying whether or not there is a clawback, you may want to read the rest of the contract, because if there's no clawback, it's not in there. So that's my issue with the redundancy. Number two, I feel like I'd like to see in legislation greater specificity, and I don't see that in this. And so for those reasons, I cannot support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Seeing no one else in the queue, all in favor say aye. I guess raise your hands as pursuant to the Council Lady's original request. All in favor say aye. Aye. Seeing all in favor say no, or raise your hands for no. Right, seeing the majority, the action is defeated. On to BL 2016-499, authorizes temporary and permanent easements to Piedmont Natural Gas for 1214, 1422, and 1450 Lebanon Road and 0 Omohundro Place for purposes of installing and maintaining a natural gas pipeline. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Anyone in the queue for discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Oh, yes. Thank you.
Mr. Jameson, is there an amendment for this one?
There was on 495, but not on 499.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
On to 499. There's a motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye. All opposed, 499 passes. BL 2016-500 authorizes the acquisition of certain easements and property rights for use in public projects for Willow Branch Drive sidewalk improvements. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 2016-500, please say aye. All opposed? 2016-500 passes. BL 2016-501 authorizes the acquisition of easements and property rights for use in public projects for Greenfield Avenue sidewalk improvements. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. 501 passes. BL 2016-502 authorizes the acquisition of easements and property rights for street sidewalk improvements. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Seeing no one in queue for discussion, all in favor of 502, please say aye. All opposed, 502 passes. BL 2016-503 authorizes the acquisition of easements and property rights for public projects for 18th Avenue South sidewalk improvements. Move for approval. And a second. Seeing no one in the queue for discussion, all in favor of 503, please say aye. All opposed, 503 passes. BL 2016-504 authorizes the acquisition of easements and property rights for use in public projects for purposes of public work, Neely's Bend Road intersection improvements. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 504, please say aye. 504 passes. BL 2016-505 authorizes the acquisition of easements and property rights for use in public projects for Ewing Lane culvert replacement. We have a letter here from Councilman Hastings requesting approval. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue for discussion, all in favor of 505, please say aye. Aye. 505 passes. BL 2016-506 authorizes the acquisition of certain easements and property rights for use in public projects for Franklin Avenue sidewalk improvements. There's a letter here from Councilman Withers requesting approval. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor of 506, please say aye. 506 passes. BL 2016-507 authorizes the acquisition of easements and property rights for use in public projects for the Lebanon Pike sidewalk improvements. So moved and seconded. All in favor of 507, please say aye. Aye. 507 passes. BL 2016-508 authorizes the acquisition of easements and property rights by negotiation or condemnation for Jones Circle sidewalk improvements. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor say aye. Aye. 508 passes. And with that, believe no further late amendments. I believe that is all of the business before Budget and Finance. Thank you, everyone, and the meeting stands adjourned.